Now we will jump into the fishing topic, which I'm going to title it Beginning Lure Guide Volume 2. We have some things on the dock, a little behind the scenes stuff. We have more than one on the dock. Are we going to get to more than one? Who the hell knows? Because we are going to try to stay to our 1 hour fishing topic. So, Tim, jigs.
Yes.
We touched on it a little bit in volume 1 over in episode 67, right at the end. It was like, okay, look, this is also what I have on the dock. Okay, let's talk about it quick. And you're like, okay, yep. And you go off a little bit and you talk about some football jigs and tungsten and all this stuff. And we were just like, okay, we have to wrap this up.
Right.
This is going to we could go on for another long time. We need to move this over to a volume 2.
That's a good way of saying it, for another long time.
So before we jump straight in, I have one question that came up in my research. Is this something, are jigs something that requires skill? Is it something that can be easy to start but hard to master? You know, like what are we getting into here with this? Because holy shit, man, the range that these things run and what you catch with them and everything. I was like, for me, this is an ice fishing jig. You just drop down a hole. Like this is just a weight and a hook, and you just drop it down a hole and you wait. That's my experience with jigs. And I'm doing this research and I'm thinking, okay, Tim, can you tell me, is this a skill thing that's like master level type lure? Or are we looking at a situation that's easy to start, hard to master? What one is it? Am I even on the right page?
It is. Oh, it's kind of hard to answer. It is easy to start and it is hard to master. And part of that is because there are so many different types of jigs that some are easier to use than others.
Okay.
And
so it is like that.
Definitely certain styles of jigs, you have to have the right gear to be able to use it, because you can't just use anything. And then other ones are like, you can put it on whatever you want and it will work, because it is, like you're saying, an ice fishing style jig. So you can be dealing with like lighter tackle and smaller stuff, but it definitely, there are so many variations of jigs and so many different ways to fish everything. And then so many different things that you can put on your jigs that change what you're doing and how you're fishing it. That just like, like,
so
dude,
since this is the beginner guide, I do want to I did it in volume 1, but I got to do it here again, of course, is to put it simple. Like I said, the ice fishing thing is, this is a weight of some sort, like a round weight of some sort, typically round, but there can be different shapes. And then it has a hook just embedded in it, and it's just a single regular hook. Yeah, for anybody over on YouTube, Tim's holding up what to me is very standard. It's just a barbed hook, barbed fishing hook.
Yes.
And a weight at the end that would typically be it's the opposite of the hook. I don't know hook anatomy, but it's so simple. Like at its simplest form, it's a weight and a hook. Boom. It's just a hook stuck into a weight, and you tie your line straight to the weight. Simple.
Yep. Yeah. So
why is it not that simple?
Because when you get down to, no, I totally get it. When you get down to it, we are talking about the shape of the weight part makes a difference. And the strength and the shape of the hook makes a difference. Whether or not it has a weed guard makes a difference. There's a lot of different things that go into it that change a lot of different stuff and how you use it. And then there's also things that completely turn a jig almost into another bait when you start adding blades and stuff. So it just adds this whole world.
Right.
Now I know we're talking about beginner stuff, so we'll just be kind of like be trying to touch on like what these all are. I'm not going to try to like break down absolutely everything.
Right.
But
Okay. Yeah.
so I don't have great
Good path.
examples of everything. Yeah. So
Yeah.
since I
I
held up
agree with
this
you there.
first one, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, since I held up this first one, I think maybe I'll just talk about this one first and just kind of because this one's almost more basic. And I have another example to kind of show you a difference of things. But so this one, although it seems a little bit more basic, it is not like your traditional jig. You know, some of these jigs, let me show you one
Is
that's
it because
real old
that one
and give
for
you an
the
idea.
people who aren't on YouTube, but this one's going to be a good visual one. Tim's going to have some good visuals.
Right.
But
and I'll do
is
my
it
best to
because
explain what we're looking at.
Oh, okay. I'm jumping in then. I'll let you go.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You ask your question. I think it's best for me to try to answer questions and then I'll try to also talk about other stuff.
Yeah. So the one that you held up right away, you know, where I said it's just a weight with a hook in it and tried to be simple. You said it's not traditional though, because of the shape. It kind of, I don't know. It almost had like a fish head shape.
Exactly. So let me show you this and then I'll go back to that one real quick. So this is more of like a panfish style jig. It's been around for ever. People refer to this as a flu jig.
Oh,
Where
really?
it gets its name from, I don't know. I didn't look into it. But this jig, not only have they been around forever, this one's been around forever. This jig is old as hell. I have a lot of old stuff that I like to collect. Yeah, this one's very old. And it's in pretty good shape for how old it is. It kind of like I like this one a lot because this one has a little bit of tinsel in here. You can kind of see the shininess of that with the white background. It's kind of hard to see. But this yellow is actually feathers, like real feathers.
Oh, it's real feathers.
Yeah, so this when it's because it's more of a like a finesse style smaller jig, those feathers, those little fibers and stuff, even when it's not moving, the smallest little currents in the water have those feathers moving and stuff. So you can almost put that on a jig or like on a line and let it sit even underneath the bobber with nothing on. It still has a little bit of movement on a day where it's hard to catch fish and stuff. That tiny bit of movement can get them to bite. Like they'll just swim up to it, stare at it for a while, and then decide. But you can see that this one is literally just a ball, you know?
It is. Yeah.
And that line tie, I don't know if you can really see that too well.
Yeah.
But that line tie is like directly on top of it.
Yeah.
So you have a ball with a line tie directly on top of it because that one is made to be kind of just pulled, you know, like wiggle like that and just kind of jump up and down almost.
Okay.
But you could cast it out. You could fish that off the bottom. You could do a bunch of different stuff. It gives you more options and stuff. But like this one is actually made to fish with like a swim trailer.
Oh yeah. So the first one, the yellow one that you had with the feathers on it, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's like fishing weight. When you fish with a bobber, you just snap one of those, you crimp one of those round weights on your line.
Yeah.
It was like that. And then it just had a hook and feathers coming out of the weight. Like,
right.
Totally what I exactly pictured as a jig. For me, that's my impression of a jig.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense because we were ice fishing. You drop it down a hole with a, you know, minnow on it, or not even a minnow, but a night crawler even. And the feathers are doing half the work. The worm's sending out the scent almost.
Sure. Yeah.
And
you could put whatever you want on there. You could put a different bait. You could put a soft plastic on there if you wanted to.
Sure.
Back in the day, I don't know how many soft plastics they were really using. I knew they had some, but I don't think they really had the like scented versions like we had. I think they had you know, little paddle tail or like curly tail grubs that would wiggle around. That's curly tail is kind of like this. This was a different thing that I had there. You know,
boy.
That's kind of off topic. I'll get to that.
No, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, go back to the very first one you held up. You said this like one with the fish head shaped.
Yeah.
weight
So you
on it.
see how the line tie is not directly on the
Yeah.
top here and it's in the front? It's because this one is being pulled through the water. This one is designed to fish. This is a much smaller. This is a pretty big jig head right here.
Yeah.
So this soft plastic bait is way smaller than what you should be having on there. But you can see when I put that on there, it's got like this paddle tail.
Yep.
This is a paddle tail grub. I keep forgetting to describe this for the people not on YouTube. So it's like a paddle tail, like a swim bait,
soft minnow,
a soft plastic, and then you can put that on the hook, and then like this one you cast out and you just reel it in, and that this bait does all, or like the tail does all the work, and you could drop that down and it would land, and it would, you could jig it off the bottom, you can cast it out, you can straight retrieve it, so that's why it's easy to use. Like you could literally put this on this jig head, cast it out and reel it in,
and just start reeling.
Do nothing but that. Just cast it out and reel it in and do it over and over. You can catch fish.
Yeah. Because the hook comes right out of the head of like the mid back, like where a fin would be, right? Like where the dorsal fin would be.
Right. And it's balanced in such a way, like it stands still kind of when it's on the bottom.
Yes, I see what now that it's flat on your hand like that, it's at like a 30-degree angle maybe. So you can see how it would keep the soft plastic off the bottom.
Yeah. So if you wanted to go down, so if you wanted to go down, it would help a little bit. But this is more of like an open water thing too, because there's no weed guard here. A lot of jigs.
So between the hook's just wide open is what you're saying.
Yeah. So this is actually a weed guard.
That mohawk.
And when a fish bites, that will fold down, So that's stopping weeds from hitting it. But if a fish bites, that'll fold down and they'll be able to get that hook right there.
So what is it? Because the way I'm looking at it is like the jig weight is like the head of the fish almost, right? And it's got this really, really vertical mohawk on it. What is that made out of? Like, how does it keep it? Because it looks so soft still. How does it keep it actually weedless is my question.
Some of them are made out of like a thin wire. Some of them are made out of fluorocarbon. So it depends. It's like some of them are just kind of like a plastic. I don't necessarily know all the materials, but a lot of them are like this kind of green color where it kind of blends in with everything.
It's pretty dark.
This is a swim jig. This is a swim jig as well. This is a completely different design. So this one has a line tie. You can just see the hole in there. If you look through, you see the white dot. That's the hole.
Yeah, it's like a nose on the fish almost.
Yeah. So this one is a skirted swim jig. So I should say,
where's the skirt? Oh, that I see it. It's in your hand.
The swim jig, huh?
The skirt. I was like, where's the skirt on it? But it's in your hand.
Oh, yes. I'll show you that too. So the skirted jig, you're talking, this is a skirt. Yeah. Jig head is in my fingertips. Yeah. And then a skirt is literally like a bunch of small rubber.
It's like a car
essentially,
wash.
It's like a soft plastic.
When it's off.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Where it's just drooping there. Yeah. Like those things that spin around to clean your car for sure. But yeah, it's some of them are cut finer than others. So some of that plays a role too. And a lot of the skirted jigs, you'll see it's like your jig head, and then it'll just be the skirt like to right there. So it's just past the hook. But like this swim jig has extras in the middle where it's a little bit thinner because that gives more of the profile of a bait fish. Where like the tail gets thinner. So your main reason for a skirt is to add bulk.
Oh, really?
When you're talking, because when you're talking this jig, I can do the same thing, right? You're talking this jig, and you put Whoops, I dropped
The
some
one
shit.
that you said we were
You're
talking
talking
about with
this
the soft
jig.
plastic.
Yeah, and you put that soft plastic on it. You can see how that's just a head and a bait now. So it looks just like a minnow, and that's about it. Now, if
Right.
I wanted to make it look like something more, I could take this swim jig, I could put that trailer on it, and just look in
Oh
the
my God.
how much more, this isn't like the greatest example of how I'm holding it up, but you can see just how much more bulk there is. And that's
Yeah.
so
And
almost
hold on.
all of these
You
skirted
keep going.
jigs.
Sorry. I got a question, but I got to
Oh,
clear my throat
okay.
here. Keep going. Sorry.
So almost all of these skirted jigs here are bass jigs that you need to have different setups to fish properly. But a swim
Mm-hmm.
jig like this, for the most part, you can put it on most things and be able to cast it. Now, this one is like relatively heavy. This one's kind of a big head.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that one's going to have some weight. And you can see too, like this one, this is a side note. We don't need to be getting into the weeds, but if you're wondering,
Right.
if you're looking on YouTube, that has a
Right.
blade like a spinner blade underneath it,
Yep.
referred to as like a underspin. So this one also has a blade giving it some flash on the underside, so you can cast that out and retrieve it, and that's all you really need to do
And yeah.
uh,
So
with that one.
when you were talking about adding bulk to it, because you did say bass, which is the one thing. Because again, back to going all the way back to the beginning is it's panfish. It's always been panfish. You put a little one on, some feathers, and make it stink, and you catch
Sure.
panfish. So when I learned during my research on this, and I learned like, oh no, this is totally a bass fishing thing. I was like, oh, holy shit, these things must get big. And
Yeah.
you were talking about adding bulk to it, and that must come down to like there's something in fish we don't have a full scientific explanation for or whatever, but there seems to be something in fish, and you say it all the time, where they like kind of know the amount of energy they have to expel to make
Mm.
that fish worth it, right? And
Yep.
so the first one you showed where it was that full, more fish head shape, and it had the tie kind of in the front, and you were putting the soft plastic on it. It's like that
Yeah.
just looked like a minnow,
Yeah.
and it was open water, and it just looked like a minnow almost.
Mm-hmm.
Now compare that to the bigger one that you were the swim jig, and
Yeah.
you put the minnow on it. Now we're talking about something that went from a minnow to like a small sunny in
Right.
size.
This is literally, the colors are even like a bluegill. It's kind of like bluish and green on the top, and then
Oh
there's some
yeah,
orange
they
on the
are.
bottom. This is a bluegill like style bait. That's what it's there to replicate. So
Okay.
this swim bait is designed to replicate like a bluegill, um, or sunfish, some of the bright orange, pumpkin seed, whatever it might be. There's so many different species of
Types of
bluegill.
right.
So yeah, definitely you're trying to replicate different baits, and then sometimes you can just go off the freaking walls with them. they don't they don't need to replicate anything. It just needs to look like a creature.
Oh, sure.
Hence the terms of creature baits, where they're
Right.
just like, the fish may think it's this or may think it's that, but bottom line is it sees it moving, it assumes it's alive, it has some
Mm-hmm.
girth to it, and it's
Right.
just like, I don't know what that is, but I'm eating it, you know
Right.
so when you're talking about like skirted jigs,
Yeah.
those are made for bass.
Okay.
Those are designed for bass. The skirted jigs, well, I've caught plenty northerns on them. I'm
Sure.
sure you could probably catch a muskie. I've never had a walleye bite a skirted jig before.
Mm-hmm.
So they're, I think they like more like slender profile, something that's
Sure.
not so bulky. I don't know for
Mm-hmm.
sure, but I've never caught one. I'm sure somebody out there has done it before, but it's definitely not what they're made to go after. And
Right.
with skirted jigs, there's a whole bunch of different shapes and sizes. So just know, basically, when you're talking skirted jigs, you're going for bass, and this skirted jig is a little bit longer because it's a swim jig. But if you cut it off like
Mm-hmm.
right there, that's
Right.
what most of them are. If you can see, if I move that over, you can see
There's
the hook, and it normally comes like just past the hook.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps hide the hook too a little.
Yeah, hide the hook. Perfect transition into what I was going to ask is do you just throw that out? I mean, do you have to put anything on that? Do you put stink bait on it? Do you put a trail on it? Like, or can you just throw that out like it is?
You might be able to catch a fish if you were just throwing it out, but for sure they're all designed to have a trailer on it, and you should, because it does give more life to it. And I've never fished a jig without a trailer of some sort.
And a trailer is like you always put a soft plastic on it, right? That's what a trailer is, really.
Yeah, soft plastic. When you're talking like a skirted jig, there are jigs that are made for live bait when you're talking walleyes and stuff, because you can fish a jig in a minnow. So, like early in the year, you could put a fathead minnow on your jig and you can go catch it. You can put a crappie minnow on a smaller jig and go catch crappies. Perch is a great way to catch perch and stuff. So if you're using live bait, but the big part about live bait too is like you should really only be using live bait on fish you plan on keeping. You could definitely put a fathead minnow on a skirted jig and go and catch a bass, but your odds of them swallowing it because it's a real minnow are a lot higher than, if they bite a skirted jig with a soft plastic on it. A lot of times they'll eat it and they'll hold it. They won't initially swallow it. But when you have a live minnow and they eat it and it's wiggling around in their mouth, like they know this is a live fish, it's moving. When they eat a fake bait, I think they don't know right away. They have to be like, is this real? And then when it doesn't move, they'll spit it out. A lot of times they will not swallow a fake bait. So that's why you hear somebody being like, oh, I missed that one, because they'll bite it, but they'll spit it back out right away. And they can do that remarkably well when they're sucking in the bait and spitting it out without getting the hook in their mouth. Like if you don't set the hook, it's crazy how easily they can spit it out and how easy it is to hook yourself. Like it's not always hard. Like you don't really hook your fingers bad, but you poke yourself every once in a while and you're just like, how do you, what the heck? How did, whatever.
How the hell are they doing that?
how in the hell? So this is kind of hard to see a little bit here, but that's kind of like the bait keeper. There's just kind of like a spike right there. So you would thread
up near
on
the
soft
jig
plastic
head
up
and
there.
The hook.
Yeah. So it would go over. This isn't the best example. I should say we didn't really touch on it at all. I have a lot of really good stuff that I could have shown. All of it's up north. I went through my garage and just found what I could to show. So I have all of these jigs, but I don't have any with me. So we're just trying to give a little visual to make you understand what I'm talking about if you would like to see that stuff. If not, I'm doing my best to try to explain stuff. And I know that I'm going to miss things, or I'm not going to explain some of it, or I'll forget to explain it all together. So again, if you have any questions, hit us up and be like, what was it? Show me a picture. I'll send you a picture of my... No, never mind.
No, never mind. Okay. But seriously, yes. Thank you for saying that in the middle of the topic, though, because, if you're getting this on the Wednesday, you miss all of the fun shenanigans at the beginning. And we didn't even record this part. But yeah, Tim, there was like 15 minutes of prep because Tim just starts pulling out tackle boxes. And he's like, oh, hold on. I'm going to get this one for the podcast. And then, I just grabbed this and it was just some stuff I had lying in the garage, and he's got like 5 or 6. I'm just laughing my ass off. I'm like, oh my God, you said most of your shit's up north. And I like one of those 5 is more tackle than I have. This is great.
I do have have stuff that I keep here to fish the river with.
Right. So okay, let's get back to jigs quick. I want to go to size again because I want to hear what you have to say about this and in buying them. Dude, I saw as small as 1/40th of an ounce up to 1.5 ounces, and I was like, damn.
1/40. Okay,
first of all,
bro, that's crazy.
I know, dude. 1/40th of an ounce. You have some small ice
first,
jigs.
I'll just say that it might not look that big. Oh yeah. Yeah, I have very.
We got a little delay.
I have small jigs. I don't think any of them. Yeah, there's a delay here. I don't know when that started, but it's here. So, the 1/40th is crazy small, and I'm sure that there's just a little tiny baby jig for like panfish in the ice. I don't have that, but speaking of like bigger jigs, I think you can even go past 1.5 ounces. But this one here might not look like it's much. This is a big freaking jig, and this one I think is an ounce. I think it's a full ounce. Listen, you hear that shit? I dropped it as a heavy jig.
Whoops.
But so, no, I was trying to drop it. I wanted you guys to hear it. So, when we're talking about the different sizes, definitely the sizes play a role in the different fish that you're going for, but the type of bait or soft plastics or whatever you're trying to put on there too plays a role in what kind of jigs you're looking for, because the hook length is also actually different. No, I'm not trying to like give an advertisement, but these, I've been really feeling these lately. These are the Northland tungsten. Shit is not cheap, dude, because it's tungsten. But these work so good. They're so worth it. I just have to make sure I have my leader material on and try not to lose them. These are a bummer when you lose, because this 2-pack is like $6.99 or something. That's for 2 jigs. So these are like, $3.50 a jig. So that one hurts when you're losing them, which, tungsten. They're not all that much, but these jigs are phenomenal because they're tungsten. The size of them, this is a 1/4 ounce, which is not small, but like early in the year, my kind of go to earlier in the year for walleyes and stuff. A lot of times I'm using like an 1/8 ounce, and I'll go to like a 1/4 ounce a little bit later in the year. Other people do different things, but like this is just what I like because of how I like to fish them. And this I've been using in the weeds. And the big benefit to using this in the weeds is, how we were talking about shape and stuff with the round ones. I have round jig heads that don't come through the grass well. Look how thin that is.
What? I thought it was just going to be a ball.
Compared to like, no, so it's round. See if
profile.
It's round like that. But then when you turn it sideways, it's definitely a lot skinnier. And this thing comes through the weeds. It comes through the weeds really, really well. Like when I lift it, I can feel what it's doing. Some of the other jigs that I've had, when I go to lift it to rip it through the weeds, I kind of lose it. I'm just feeling all the weeds. I'm feeling extra weight, and I don't really know necessarily what's going on. And this plays such a big role because in our next episode, we chatted about it a little bit, and we'll talk about how some of my fishing's been going lately.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it on the past and where I was having trouble finding some of the big walleyes on my lake and stuff because I'm finding the smaller ones hiding out. And I think I just catch so many damn small ones. I bet there's bigger ones in there, but I think the small ones are more aggressive and they're in the more open water. I've been finding bigger fish in the weeds.
That's a teaser. I like that.
My personal best came from in the weeds, and then I caught a 22-inch in the weeds. And I've been catching some like decent size eater fish and stuff, and it's because I'm finding them in the weeds.
Nice.
And it's a lot to do with this profile of jig. So that's where some of this comes into too. Like there are, because you might walk down the aisle and be like, there's so many different jigs. They're all 1/4 ounces. What am I looking at?
Oh.
Well, the profiles and different. A 1/4 ounce. I wish I had one of the ones to show you. The Callan's is another one that I use where it's a Callan's
He's looking. He might have one.
No, I don't. I
Who
do
knows
have
what's
one.
here? There could be one.
I have one for sure.
But that was a really good point there that just really hit for me, where you said, oh, look at all these. They're all a quarter ounce. But there's differences in them. Like this tungsten one that you were just pulling up from Northland is like, I thought it was just going to be a round ball.
Yeah.
In the package,
Well,
totally thought it was going to be a round ball. You turn it sideways, blew my mind.
That's the short shank too. Like if you're watching on YouTube, I'm putting my finger up there. You can see that it's like the hook to like, I don't know, just past my first knuckle.
Yeah.
So it's not much over an inch. So that shank doesn't go that far back. So depending on the bait you're using, like if I was planning on using like a 5-inch long shad, it might not be the best hook to have on there because of how, it would just kind of be awkward.
Sure.
But this short shank is like, I think it's money for what I'm fishing because it's not getting hung up much and stuff. There's not as much area for the weeds to kind of get like between my line and the shank itself. I think my line is almost working as a weed guard a little bit because the line itself is so close to the point of the hook. I might be wrong there, but that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So that's been working really well in the weeds. And so to get
size,
back
right
for size and stuff, but I want to say like too, when we were talking about like moving the different eyelets and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Best thing for you to do is when you think that you want to fish for a certain fish or whatever, go and try to look that stuff up. I know that like MLF actually has great articles on their website. And one of them, like, because I was just kind of, looking around and stuff and trying to get better visuals. And I was like, no, I can't. That's just, I shouldn't be showing their pictures. Like, that's right.
Plagiarism.
So, but like they have Bass Fishing 101, choose the right jig. And it literally like lays it all out for you, where it's talking about swim jig, which is what we touched on, like those. I showed a couple examples of that because that's what I have here.
Yep.
And that's one that I like to fish in the river because the river with the current is more of like a cast and retrieve. I can't jig it too much because there's a lot of rocks. Right. And you could jig in the rocks, but that riprap that I fish a lot, I lose so many things in there that I'm just like, I'm not even trying to jig. Like it might be a beneficial way to try to fish this, but I'm not trying to lose stuff constantly, so I'll just I'll just fish a different way and try to keep my stuff off the rocks.
Right.
But if you wanted to get on the rocks, when we're talking about like a skirted jig, I'll just run down a couple of different things so because there's different. A football jig is literally the shape of like a football head. That one's made to be worked like through rocks and stuff. Like you cast it out and you just you can drag it across rocks. And then you would put like a creature bait or a crawfish trailer. And then that's what you're kind of mimicking. Something just kind of like walking across the rocks or a crawfish kind of swimming across the rocks. Right. When you watch some of the guys fishing, you can kind of learn what they're fishing to by how they're working their rod because you fish these things differently, So sometimes when you see a guy casting out and they're just slowly lifting their rod up, they're fishing like a football jig where it's just kind of like walking across the rocky shores wherever they're at, or they're fishing a Carolina rig where they're just dragging a worm on the bottom basically, or whatever they have rigged up to that. So I'm not trying to get into the weeds and say like all the things.
No, because you said rigs. You already said that in the other episode. It's like rigs is a whole episode. Trust me on that one. Right. It's like, yep, I believe you.
Right. So when you're watching them, they're just moving it and they're lifting it. So going down the line real quick, like there's just, as I'm looking at this, if you want to go check this out because you're curious about like the skirted jigs, they're talking about the flipping jigs, which is just talking about like basically it's heavier duty everything because you're flipping stuff around cover, you're flipping stuff around, docks or down trees and stuff, and you want heavier hooks, heavier weed guards, all that different stuff, because you're literally casting it or flipping it into some heavier stuff where you could get hung up on, or you could have some issues. Or if you actually catch a fish, another big reason why you have to have the gear for this stuff, you're not only fighting the fish, you're trying to keep them out of that cover. And if they get around that cover, they get wrapped around that stuff, you have the gear to be able to try to pull them out. Like if you're fishing some sticks, maybe, that heavier gauge hook isn't trying to just pull your bass. You're trying to pull that bass like over the log that he swam around after you set the hook, or whatever it happens to be.
Right.
That's worst case scenario. If you set the hook, you're trying not to let them swim at all down into that stuff. You watch the pros. It's fun because they'll go, oh, and as soon as they set it up, they go, no, you stay out of there, stay out of there. They almost start talking to the fish almost every time. Don't go down there. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
So can you talk about flipping? Because that was like, I had a list of things here, and I was like, flipping jig. Like, so flipping is kind of like an underhand side toss as far as
the
technique goes.
Flipping and pitching, I looked one time because I forget what the differences are in the two different terms.
Just say the generals both.
Yeah,
you're good.
So it's like, you're kind of close to cover, and what you're doing is you're underhand tossing it with the bait caster, and you're setting it down in different spots. Like you're putting it there, you're putting it here, because you see a spot that you want to, you think the fish will be there. That's where you want to put it in. And sometimes you won't necessarily like flip it out and then work it all the way back to the boat. You'll flip it out, bounce it around a little bit where you think there might be a fish. And if it doesn't happen, you reel it back in and flip it again.
Oh, yeah.
I was literally just had my nephew out, and I was trying to tell him, like, high percentage casts, like, don't worry about some of this downtime, or like the less chance, like if you're casting at a dock, and you think there's a fish underneath the dock, and you're working a jig, work that jig along the dock, in the shade, wherever you happen to be next to that where you think the fish is. And then once you get it past that dock and you're out past that dock, unless you know that there's some weeds or some other structure and stuff there, crank that bitch up.
Just get it in.
That lasts like 30, 40 feet. Crank it up and cast at that structure again.
Right. Okay.
Don't leave it sit there. And that's what the flipping basically is, but like in a way closer. The water clarity can kind of play a role in some of this. Some lakes you can get away with it. Some lakes you got to stay a little bit further back.
Sure.
But you're just, flipping it. And another reason that you flip a jig is because when you cast, you're launching that thing and it's getting some height. And when it comes in, it splashes.
Oh, yeah.
When you flip it, if you do it right, you can put it down really gently in the water where it's just a gentle kind of like bloop, and it doesn't spook the fish. There might be fish directly underneath the cover, and you have that big splash. It might run away,
right?
Or even if it doesn't run away, it might kind of swim away from where your jig hit,
right?
And if it gently lands in, it might literally turn to be like, what just hit the water? Like a frog doesn't fall from 30 feet up.
Right.
It lands right there. So it's like whatever bait it is, for the most part, isn't landing that hard.
Right.
So when you're being more stealthy about it, that really helps out. So, and go ahead.
Yeah. How do you know if you're going into a store to buy a flipping jig? How do you know what you're getting into? Like, does it say flipping jig on it, or can most
are getting a lot better about that, because in the past a lot of them would talk about it would still say like the flipping jig or whatever, and some of them it would talk a little bit about it, but now a lot of them, like, you can read the packaging and it will just lay it all out there, like, this jig is designed with the best weed guard and the thickest hook, and they'll tell you everything. So like a couple episodes past, I had shown a jig, and the one jig that I had there was like a casting jig, and that was like a do-it-all style jig,
Okay.
which is weird, and it makes it kind of hard. So some of it's kind of like figuring out what you like too, because some of it's like designed to do a certain thing, and for some reason, like some of it, I just like, personal preference. I just go like, I don't like it for that one. Like, I'll
Okay.
give you a perfect example. There is a punching jig, right? Because
Okay.
punching mats is a thing. When you have lily
Oh,
pads and weeds that grow to the surface,
right.
it's matted vegetation, it's thick. And a lot of people will fish a frog topwater through that and stuff,
Right.
but you can punch through the mats. Like if you know that there's like a little hole here, you can let your stuff fall.
Okay.
They have jigs that are made to punch the mats, but a jig has a head
Yeah.
and then it has the hook that comes out like this.
Right.
And the way it's all set up, the weight is right here. I'll hold this one for this is not one you would use. The weight's right here and the hook is over here. So there's all this
There's a lot of
space.
space for the hook to get caught up on.
Yeah. So I got another jig here that makes it a little bit easier to explain this. But this jig, the head and how the hook is shaped, that point is directly over the head.
Hey.
So the way this
Okay.
curve is like, that's going to go through weeds a little bit better. This one's not designed for that, but
But
I like to punch like a Texas rig through because I don't think that the jig lines up the hook properly with punching matted vegetation. And I
uh-huh.
don't think the skirt is necessary when you're punching through matted vegetation. I think that skirt just gets in the way and gives
Yeah.
more
Okay.
stuff to be hung up on, you know?
Right.
So
And
my
even
personal
maybe look
preference,
weird, right? As it bounces off the weeds and shit. Like it's in
yeah, I
open
mean,
water. I can see how a skirt is meant to flow and move and like cause uh, a fish brain to just go, oh, hey, what the hell's that? Where it probably almost just gets lost in the weeds.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's some of the
Right.
weeds, once you
I
get
don't know
past that
either.
matted
But
vegetation, it can actually be a lot of space down there because it's just like the stems of lily pads. So the
oh,
matted vegetation is like thick on the surface, but once
on
you
the
get past that,
surface.
there can be some open space.
Ah,
So there
okay.
can be a role for it, and it has that bulk, so it might be getting the fish's attention, the bigger fish and stuff. So that's all personal preference. If you want to roll like that, I'm just making the example of that might be perfect for you. You might love it. That might be something you want to do. I prefer to punch Texas rigs through a big heavy weight with like a more slimmer uh creature on it, and that I don't need a weed guard for because I
Mm-hmm.
can just bury the hook because it lines up like this. Now this jig is a little bit different style where this one is actually called a pumpkin ed jig,
Oh, yeah. Okay. You've talked about
because
this a little bit.
so this one, like when it sits, that's on the back of my hand and it just sits up. So when it goes to the bottom of the lake, it just stands up like that.
Yeah.
And this one, it has a little bait keeper here where you literally screw like the worm on the front because this you could fish like a crayfish, but this is more like designed for a worm. And you would screw the nose of the worm in here and then bury this hook in the worm itself so it's like completely weedless, and then the rest of the
Oh,
worm just kind of trails up. So if you get like a bait that actually floats and stuff, you could drop this to the bottom, and like
uh-huh.
just like we were talking with the feather, if it's a floating one, any current will just make that worm kind of wiggle a little
Just
bit, and then you pop
wiggle.
it and then it'll wiggle a little bit and move. And that's kind of the idea behind like a shaky head jig too, which a shaky head is a very finesse, very small jig for fishing bass and stuff. Like the weight itself is way small, and you generally fish
Huh.
that kind of jig on a spinning setup because of how light it is, and a lot of fishermen hate it. It's not the funnest way to fish because you cast it out, and it's called a shaky head because you literally just kind of like move your rod a little bit, you're like just kind of shaking it, and it gives the
Like you just
movement.
vibrate it
It's a
basically.
finesse. Yeah, like it's a finesse, and it's, like on a day where like the fish do not want to bite, and you just gotta slow it way down and just shake that thing a little bit. It's a very slow way of fishing. You don't cover a lot of ground very fast.
Uh-huh.
So
So
it
is
sucks
the
sometimes if you don't know where the fish are, but it works really well in certain scenarios.
okay. That's yeah. So yeah, it's difficult. I get it. It's the hard to master part of the jigs, like we kind of talked about at the
Right.
beginning, I think. And
Yeah.
when you say um okay, so I'm trying to think of my words that exactly. I'm trying to piece together the words, but what I'm trying to get at is the shaky head. You said okay, you shake it, but like is it still solid, or is there something about the jig that makes it shake too, or like that is designed about the weight itself, Do you get where I'm going?
Yes. So it's a lot like this. It'll be a very
Oh,
small
that
little ball,
football one
and
again.
then it'll
No, what is
have,
it called? Sorry.
yeah,
Pumpkin head.
this is the pumpkin Ed, because it's actually like it was initially called the pumpkin head jig, but this one's called the pumpkin Ed because it was designed by Edwin Evers. I think is how you say his last
Mm-hmm.
name. Is it Edwin Evers or Edwin Evers? But so that's called the pumpkin Ed because Edwin. So
Mm-hmm.
that's,
Mm-hmm.
uh but it's a lot like this. A lot of them are designed where it's a very small head, and you screw on the nose of the worm, and then you put the worm up, and it's a way smaller hook, and it doesn't do
Okay.
anything. It's just the weight is so small and everything. You're really doing everything. So that goes
Okay.
back to being able to like master it by learning the technique, but also the gear. Like that, you have to have small setup and stuff to
Mm-hmm.
be able to fish
Right.
that, because you have to be able to feel that small weight and small stuff. Where vice versa, you can't be using that small stuff to be casting out these big jigs. It's going to be
Right.
bending your pole when you try to lift it. Your rod's just going to bend. You're not going to be actually able to like lift the jig and feel it properly and stuff. So some of it
Right.
really comes down to exactly what you're doing and stuff. Um,
Sure.
so and there are finesse styles of the skirted jig as well, where the ball gets smaller, and then a lot of times those, to give it a little bit of extra movement where when you're trying to go slower and stuff, the skirts will
Mm-hmm.
actually not only be like, this is a terrible head to try to show you on, but not only be here, maybe I got a different one, maybe like this flu food jig where it won't only be tied on the back, like you can see that red is
Yeah.
tied. It'll
Yeah.
actually
Almost
have
like a
like,
fly.
if you had a little bit of those feathers like sticking out the front too. So
Oh.
they'll do that with the rubber skirt where it's a little bit sticking out the front too. They don't do it on all of them, but a lot of them, like the finesse
Mm-hmm.
style, do have the where they'll just tie the skirt. They'll literally just leave like a half-inch stick out the front, so it kind of covers up the ball almost. And I don't know exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what the purpose for that is. Um, I'm sure it just gives it a little bit of movement in the front and the back, and gives it some more life. But
Right.
there's
Yeah.
definitely smaller versions of those skirted jigs too. And then that
Okay.
kind of gets into the weeds on what kind of gear you're using. Maybe spinning if it's
Yeah.
small
Yeah.
enough, maybe bait caster and you just have to use a smaller bait caster setup. That's
Mm-hmm.
why when you see these pros, they have 20 rods and reels, because they might have like one for a
Right.
small jig and they want to use a certain jig with a certain bait caster. It's because all these different techniques and all these different jigs can use different rods and reels.
Right.
So
Right.
that's why it gets into the
That's
weeds of
fucking
just like, is
crazy.
it hard to master? And, it's like, yeah, because to master it, you really have to have an arsenal,
Right.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good way of putting it. Because that was like that was kind of how I had things written down too in my notes was like okay, if there's this finesse, because I kind of understand what finesse is and casting and swimming and swimmers and all this stuff, and it did seem to me like this is where the gear comes into play. Like this is a jig is a way to, if you're looking at just jigs, I'll say that. So if you're looking at just jigs, right, and you want to get good at fishing jigs, and you want to fill up your tackle box with jigs, you're going to eventually get to a point where you have to start getting into reels and rods and combos and the what is it, action of the rod.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
You like, this is a jig is fit for all of that stuff, and that's, yeah. So you
Right.
explained it all perfectly, but it was like, yeah, dude, I had that note down as that was one of my main questions. So I just love the way that you answered it. It's like, that's why you have an arsenal.
Yes. And
So
now,
crazy.
I know that we're getting close to being done with the fishing topic. So I just want to hit rapid fire. I'm just going to hit some different stuff now.
Oh, okay.
When we're talking about bass fishing, it's all mainly the different skirts are made of like the same material. Some are like a way finer. Sometimes when you're looking at it and you're like, why is that one more expensive? Because the skirt's made out of a finer material. The skirt might be made out of a more durable material. The skirt in the power bait is actually scented. Maybe that's one reason. The weights themselves can be made out of tungsten. They can be made out of other metals.
Yep.
The hooks themselves can be made out of different materials.
Right.
So you're looking at all these different things. So generally, when you're looking at stuff and it's a trusted name brand, it's more expensive because all of the components they use. And not to say that like smaller tackle companies don't use good stuff too.
Right.
It's just I can't vouch for all of them, I don't know them. I'm not going to be like, go, yeah, whatever. If they say $10, spend $10. They know what they're talking about. I don't know those guys. Some of them are legit. Some of them are some guys that are ripping off other people's shit. Just trying to make money off of it,
Right.
But who knows? So, but when you're talking about other jigs, which basically like this, 100% you could fish for bass. Just depends on what you put on it, So
that little tungsten, that thing would
the short
catch
tungsten.
bass?
Yes, forgot again. People, I'm just listening. I just go, this you could fish for bass. Yeah. Also, this. You're looking at this. Are you guys taking a peek at that one? No, I didn't hold up anything there. If you're just listening, sorry. I'm trying to do better. The junkston you could catch for was the bass nass. This
jig,
okay,
tungsten.
Sorry.
The
came up with a new word. Jig, the short shank tungsten jig by Northland catches bass. I catch bass on it all the time. I catch northerns on it. The reason I don't have some of these jigs and I just bought 3 more packs is because northerns. You'd stop eating my shit. Anyways. So you can catch bass, but a lot of these are designed for other stuff. Now, there are different materials when you're out there. So feathers will keep moving in the water. Hair. This is a hair jig.
Oh, shit.
Now, there's an old soft plastic there. This is actual hair. Some of the hair jigs
Cruella de Vil hair.
Yeah, exactly. And this one has we just keep saying say 2 words and but this one has a little bit of like shimmery tinsel in there too, so it gives it some shine. But then it's hair, because hair also keeps moving. Now buck hair, which hence buck tails, like the single inline spinner blades, those are actually deer hair because their hair is hollow, so it moves better in the water. I don't know if this one's buck. I don't remember. This one's an older jig made by VMC. It's a hair jig. You can put whatever. I got a old soft plastic on there too. So I was fishing that like that for different. You can see how elongated that head is.
That looks like a little minnow by itself, but just has the eye on top.
I'm pulling it like kind of this. Tie. This is right. This one's more of like a kind of open water, not fishing in like real thick grass or whatever. But that one's hair. Now that other one had a little bit of like tinsel on there. Some of them are all tinsel. This one's like 100% tinsel. It's very shiny. Another VMC one. Now, the crazy thing about it is look at the size difference there. Panfish.
Oh, yeah.
Walleye on the bottom, basically. That's what it goes for. You can see the size difference in the hooks. Hooks way smaller on the little guy, bigger on the bigger guy, obviously. So you're looking at different sizes. You're looking at different weights. You know, how you're fishing them
and
is
for the
different.
people who weren't watching for those, it was you had two of almost the identical different colors, but you had like two identical jigs, and the walleye one was bigger. I don't know, I'll say like 2-3 inches or something like that. And then it was just like, cut that in half. It was like the same thing though, but it would catch different kinds of fish.
Right. Same thing, different size for panfish or whatever. Now, this is not trying to get too off topic because I'm going to keep going with some jigs, but I wanted to show you, here's the exact same style jig as that little one. Now you put a safety pin style bait on it. There's a blade. Now this is a spinner bait. Oh. That jig just became a spinner bait with the addition of a blade. I did not. This is made by Blue Fox. Also under the Rapala or Rapala umbrella. Same as VMC. Yeah. That's why these jigs are so the same thing. And then the Blue Fox, that actually came in a pack of like 5, I think. So there's 5 different jigs. One of them had the blade already attached to it. And then there was literally like, then you have 4 other colors that you could swap it out with.
Oh, wow.
Almost like 5 baits in one, unless you get bit off by a northern, your blade's gone, then you just have a
You're gonna keep going back into that. Fuckers.
So now that was just to show you that there are differences. You can do stuff. Johnson's Beetle Spin has been around forever, and theirs is a jig with a soft plastic on it with a blade like that, and that's just how it's sold. You get that, and then it comes with like,
the plastic.
Yeah, 3 additional.
Is it like glued? Is the plastic like then factory glued on? Is that what you're saying? It's not.
Here, let me show you. Not glued on. Johnson Beetle Spin, right there. Here you go.
Here, hold on. I just happen to have one.
Yeah. So it's still in the packaging here. Jig head.
There it is. Plastic. Now it's in focus, but
blades on there. Those are 3 different. One of them has soft plastic. The other 2 are there. So like if your soft plastic gets damaged by a fish, you got 2 more. Okay. And you can literally put on whatever soft plastic.
Yeah. It just comes with a suggested. It's like when they say when the food's all pretty on the front of the Triscuit box, and they're just like serving suggestion. Oh. It's actually just full of fucking Triscuits.
Yeah.
But this one comes with the fucking extra cheese on it in the box with it.
Here's a Triscuit with a little bit of salmon and a little bit of smoked Gouda on that. Doesn't that look nice? We know you're just going to put some of that easy cheese out of the can on it, you cheap fuck. So you can put whatever you want on it. Now this is made by Strike King. It's called a sausage head.
It looks like a sausage.
It looks like a little sausage. Yeah.
It looks like a grub.
So this one actually comes with that grub like body on there. Oh. That soft plastic. It came pre-rigged with that straight from Strike King. So that's what that one looks right out of the gate. So you can put that on there. This is not by Strike King. Almost the exact same soft plastic on there.
Oh yeah.
Not made by the same company whatsoever. This one has a way weirder shaped jig head.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Because this one's like
shaped like a 7.
It's not called a reed runner, but it's something like that. I forget what they call that. It's something like that. Maybe
I've never seen a jig that looks like that before. That looks like some fucking weird cartoon character from like Cartoon Network.
Right? It's got a
now it looks like a fucking seahorse now that you changed it that way.
It's like a runny nose. It's got a spinner for a runny nose.
Yeah, it does.
Achoo!
Seahorse runny nose spinner.
So it's got that head shape because it wants that underspin, like when you're jigging it or reeling it.
Oh, sure.
That blade doesn't hit the body.
And when these come pre-rigged with the soft on them, with the soft plastic on it already, is it like is it manufactured glued on, or it's just no? They just rigged it already for you.
They're just rigged.
Okay,
they're not
cool.
glued on. And sometimes people glue them on. That is a tip that you can put some super glue on there, but super glue has like a stink to it, so I'm always nervous about gluing it on there. But people do it.
Okay.
And they have good luck. So
okay.
I mean, that was just a couple of examples there of that. And speaking of like already pre-rigged, some jig heads are literally designed for certain baits. This is a storm search bait. I can't remember what this is called. I think it's called a 360 GT or something, like 360 search bait.
Okay.
So this one has a head on it.
Yep.
It's like a swim bait, but the tie is actually on the top. Because I don't know necessarily the design idea on that. If it's just weighted in such a way that it swims well like that. I thought that was kind of weird the first time I bought it. But this literally, like the soft plastic
is cut to it, isn't it? It's like the back of the jig head has a 45-degree angle on it, so that means the opposite is on the soft plastic.
Yeah, holy so shit! The soft plastic is like cut to it. That jig head is shaped in such a way to literally just use that soft plastic.
Yeah, and then, it also has the bait. What are those called again?
Yeah, the bait keeper. I thought it would focus in a little bit there better, but not so much. But you can kind of see how it's ribbed.
You can see it,
and it holds on there well, so it doesn't pull off. And they make those in a couple of different sizes, but that there is, in a nutshell,
specifically
like one that's
manufactured
made
to go together.
Yeah, right. They are made for each other. So sometimes you get stuff like that where it's not really made to do anything else. So when you're getting pre-rigged stuff, kind of watch out for that sometimes. There's not a whole lot of baits like this.
Yeah.
But like this sausage head, if I lose this one, I just put on another one, whatever. Anything that fits the bill that's the same size. I can literally put anything on there.
As far as
same with any of this tinsels, I could put on a live bait. If I'm fishing for crappie, I could put on some, whatever I have. Euro larva, which is a fancy way of saying maggots. I could put on some wax worms. Whatever it happens to be, you could add other stuff, tip it to it. And it works out. So most jigs you can add whatever you want, but I just brought this one in to be like, when you're out there looking at it, don't be like, oh, I'll buy this one and make it work. Because in rare occasions, the jig heads are made specifically for that soft plastic, like the
that's
soft
pre-rigged.
Plastic.
Yeah. Which is a perfect thing for like a beginner's guide to this stuff. Because like, it's still a jig setup, but it just doesn't seem that way really. When again, it's just back to the jig is a weight with a hook on it. This is very specific,
right? And now that I've been showing all this other stuff, and I just realized this whole time I could have been showing this without the blade. Now, first off, I had this trailer on there, so try to ignore that trailer. You see that there's the skirted jig goes straight to the hook.
Yeah.
This is referred to as chatterbait or a bladed jig.
Yeah.
Now, this is the jackhammer. I was talking about this in the last episode when we were talking about iCast.
Yep.
This one is a little bit more, it has everything where I thought it had everything that you wanted, but we learned last time, I guess they improved on this because this is like a $16 lure right here.
Holy shit, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's not cheap. So it has the jig head itself is like shaped in a way. And this blade, when you fish it, it literally goes, back and forth like this really fast in the water. Just, and it gives it a really hard vibration.
Yep. But it's still a jig. That's in the end, right?
It's still a jig. And the blade, if anybody's not watching it is on the blade that is attached to the nose of the jig, vibrates really fast, and it is shaped like a coffin. But not a full long coffin. If you took the top of the old school coffins
Right.
where it had that, like Dracula shape, but then you got like
exactly.
halfway down
Think
and then you
about
cut off
Halloween
the
and shit.
bottom.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like a coffin shaped blade. And when you get this, I have a little that's um a flat nose minnow Berkeley Max scent, which when this episode comes out, go to your Shields and check if they still have them on sale, because I was getting them for $1.99, bro. It's a great deal. I bought 9 packs of soft plastics and spent less than $20. And if I would have paid full price, that was over $70.
Yeah.
So
it was
that's
fucking
what I'm
awesome.
talking about.
You
We've
text me the
talked about
receipt right away.
yeah, we've talked
so
about
good.
yeah. So if the sale, it's just like discounted. I think they're just trying to get rid of some of them. Go check them out. You might have to
because the new
for some
shit should be
colors you
coming
don't
out here
want.
soon.
Yeah. Well, I think they'll probably be starting to switch over. Is what Shields likes to do that. When you get to the end of the season, end of the ice season, end of the summer season, they start discounting stuff. They don't always discount the soft plastics and stuff and the summer baits. Those just kind of like stay year round for the most part. But I think some of that Max stuff, or the Max scent and the gulps and stuff,
have an
might get a little
date.
bit weird. Yeah, they might have a little bit of an expiration date. I don't know that for sure, but I'm willing to risk it. $1.99, whatever. If they get a little bit stiff, I don't care. Just be like, the action's not great, but the price was right.
So before we wrap, because we hit our
real quick.
No, I think this might be the same. We might be getting into it. Hit me.
Oh, is this what you were talking about?
Well, I was going to talk about trails or trailer. What do you call them?
Trailers. Yeah, trailers. So there's trailers of all different sizes and kinds, and I just wanted to show you this one because I brought it up before. This one is specifically made for a chatterbait, or a bladed jig, because this one goes on there. It's got the 2 tails that, just give it a little bit of action. You put it on there, you reel it up, and it just adds a little bit more to what's going on.
Yeah. That one's like a frog. It's like a frog, but I'd call it a creature bait because it's like a fish shape with a frog.
It's a fish shape, and then it's just got like a tail in the back that just gives you some movement. This one was designed,
and I say frog like I mean
bait.
literal frog. I mean, if like something that's long in the water and then has kicking legs in the back of it. I'm not talking about a fishing frog.
Right.
I should have clarified that.
If you can see this.
Yep, it just came
into
focus.
To give you an example of what we're talking about now.
Bladed jig.
Yeah, what to use. So that's a lot of packaging nowadays gives you those kind of guidelines. So if you're having any questions, most of the baits are there. And, go in. If you don't want to talk to anybody, you don't have to. She just can be like, they come over, can I help you with anything? And sometimes people are just like, well, I don't really know what I'm looking at. And if you want help, they'll help you. If you don't want help, just be like, I'm good. If you say, I don't know what I'm looking at, they're just going to be like, I know what you're looking at. Let me tell you everything. If you want to learn stuff yourself, just be like, fuck off, bro. I don't need you to talk. I'm here to read boxes and packages. You might look like you're, trying to case the place and steal something, but as long as you don't, you're fine.
Yeah. And if you just want to learn it from some fishing buddies and you don't have any, well, here you go. Real AFTV podcast. Hit us up.
I'll tell you. Yeah, we'll talk to you. But as far as trailers go, there's all different sizes. There's all different scents. Yeah. Power bait is good at giving you. Here's another thing too. Power bait's giving you that thing. How to use it. What to put it on.
Right.
Power bait has a lot of packaging like this where it lets you know. If you're looking at something and you're not necessarily sure and that packaging doesn't tell you, go to Power Bait. Power Bait has something of almost every. Yeah, exactly. Has a trailer for almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly everything. I'm saying almost everything because I don't know off the top of my head, but I would say you'd be hard pressed to not be able to find something made by Berkeley that will not fit on whatever you're trying to put it on.
Mm-hmm.
And like Josh just said, look at that if you're looking at something similar, for the most part. And the trailer, where a jig can accept a lot of different trailers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of trailers can be used on a jig, or it can be used in a Texas rig or a Carolina rig, or all the, so it all becomes
that's
this
part of
different
what I
stuff.
was
And
perfect.
when we were talking about rigs, holy
We'll
man, I
get into
talked about
rigs.
it
I mean, we
last
just
time.
did
There's
a whole lot more hour plus on just jigs, and I have another half of podcast written here that obviously we're not going to get into, but I thank you for just answering it without me asking. And that was like, so a trailer is a soft plastic, and then you pulled up one and it's
right.
like, this says specifically you should use this on a jig. That would be a great way to fish this. So it's a trailer. It's not necessarily just a soft plastic. It's a trailer because you would put it on a jig, aka making it a trailer. And then
Mm-hmm.
you also answered the other question that I was going to ask, and that's like, are they? So they are ones that are specifically made for a jig, yes, but
Yeah.
do they have to go on a jig? And the answer is, well, no, but Power Bait will tell you
Right.
if it's
Exactly.
the right way to
And
go or something like that. So,
not all of it is necessarily soft plastic, because there
mm,
are different brands that have dabbled into different materials that are supposed to last a little bit longer.
okay.
Like Uncle Josh is the actual brand that's been around for a very long time,
That's awesome.
and they use legitimate pork. Like it's
Whoa.
it is
Oh,
so
I
back
feel
in the
like you've probably
day.
told me this in like one of the first two
I
episodes
think
or
I
few
think I've touched
episodes,
on it,
but
but
it
back in the
seems it was
day,
so long ago. This is all brand new to me
yeah,
again.
yeah. So back in the day, there was, you'd have your jig, and then you would put the piece of like Uncle Josh's pork on it, where it is a
Mm-hmm.
trailer, and it's literally just like a thick little, it moves well, but it has a scent and it's tough. It's not like your
Interesting.
normal soft plastic that can pull apart. And the term that they would use is a jig and pig,
Fuck
because of the
yeah,
pork.
dude.
Yeah.
Such a good name.
Yeah, so the jig and pig would use the pork. Now that Uncle Josh has been moved into other stuff, people actually use it for walleyes and stuff, because
Mm,
they have night crawler imitations that are made out of this pork material.
interesting.
Um, there is some ice fishing bait that I have that is beaver tail.
Whoa.
So you can get
Whoa, dude.
different stuff that's not live and it's not soft plastic. So there
Okay.
are different materials, but a trailer is just, designed to be put on the hook. But for the most part, it is soft plastic. Some of them are scented, some of them are unscented. Gulp is made out of a material that if you leave on your hook and you let it dry out, it will shrink up, and you literally have to cut it off with like a scissors or something. It will not come off
Uh-huh. I've
by
seen
you
that.
just trying to pull it. It's crazy. It
It's
shrinks up.
so crazy.
Yeah.
It
And
turns to like a
Gulp.
piece of plastic that's attached to your fucking.
Yeah.
It's crazy weird.
And Gulp is made by Berkeley, so that's just a completely different material that they make it out of.
Right.
Z-Man is made out of a different material. Northland's Eye Candy, I got some upstairs. I bought some. Doesn't have any scent, so you can add scent to it, but it says like
Oh.
use water-based or oil-based, because a soluble base can actually mess with it, because the plastic that it's made out of, they even
Oh.
say do not let it out of its original packaging,
Oh.
because if you do, it can damage your plastic tackle box. It can damage your other stuff.
Holy
Whatever
shit.
that shit is made out of can actually eat away at other plastics that it's surrounding.
Oh
But if
my
you keep it
God.
in its original plastic case, it's fine. And I bought some bait fuel because it doesn't have any scent, and I like to have scent. They're
Yep.
literally just like, we didn't scent it, so you can scent it if you want to, or you don't have to use scent, whatever you're up to. So I put a little bit of the scent in
Into the
earlier
case itself.
today, and I plan to fish like maybe tomorrow night.
Yep.
Definitely Saturday morning, as long as nothing goes wrong. I don't want to jinx myself and be like, oh, be out there. You never know. But
maybe.
It's all that different stuff. So there's scented stuff, there's non-scented stuff.
Yeah.
There's different scents. I have very
But all
good
that
luck.
that is stuff you do to the trailer of the jig. That's all soft.
Right.
That's
Yep.
And just, I guess to put it simply, is the jig is the weight and the hook.
The jig is the weight and the hook, and you need to have a trailer to catch fish for the most part. So the trailer actually comes into play, and some of
as
the
like part
baits
two
really work.
Or like it's a 2-part thing.
Yeah.
A jig is a real thing. Is a thing. It's just a plain. It's a hook.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of hook.
And I just it's a different kind of hook. It's a hook with a weight, and the weight can be different shapes, different sizes.
Mm-hmm.
The skirt that's on it, because these are technically skirts too. The skirt that's on it can be made of tinsel, can be made of hair. The skirt can literally be made out of the soft plastic itself, where this has a skirt, but that skirt is part of the plastic itself.
Right.
If I
Good
take
point.
off,
Never thought about
that,
it, but
it
has a skirt
that shit.
built
This
into
one,
the
when I was
plastic.
saying that they're not
Cool.
glued, I think this one is. I don't know. That one did not come off there easy. I tore that plastic in half.
Oh,
no, that's just a crazy hook keeper. It's got like 2 points on each side. It's hard to see.
Yep, I see that.
2 points on each side holding it. But when I ripped that off of there, it's a weight with a hook.
It's a weight, right?
That was just a soft plastic on there.
And then you set it up.
Weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same thing on the skirted jigs, where the skirted jigs for the most part is just a skirt being held on by a rubber band. And that's all it is. When that skirt's gone, you're looking at a weight with a hook. Right. And a lot of those same jigs you can get without skirts. They have football head jigs that don't have skirts to like make it a little bit more of a realistic profile.
Sure.
Like a crawfish doesn't have a skirt, which still catches fish. When you look at a crawfish with a skirt and the claws are up and then there's just a skirt in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
If I looked at that and, I was a fish, obviously we're way smarter than fish, I'd just be like, the fuck is that? That's nothing.
Yeah.
But if you have the weight holding the bottom of it and you can't see the difference that well, that crawfish will look like a crawfish because there's no skirt there. So sometimes you can turn off the fish by having a skirt or, doing some stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So other times you just get it without the skirt. You can get the football head jig without a skirt.
Mm-hmm.
This pumpkin head jig is very close to like a skirted jig, but it just completely different hook design, different bait keeper.
Sure.
And you have no skirt. There's not a whole lot different between this and the skirted jig.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like you said, I mean, in short, I know I say in short after we talked for an hour and 40 minutes, but in short, that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's different sizes, different weights, the hooks, all of it can change for specific baits that you want to put on there, specific techniques. And it's just kind of like a touch and feel, learning everything. A lot of the stuff that you see that I have here, to be honest, the reason I have it here is because I don't use a lot of this stuff. What I'm showing you, don't be like, I got to go out and grab everything you just showed me. Because I don't use a lot of this stuff because it doesn't fall into the right scenario. None of this stuff is bad. It just doesn't work perfectly for what I'm using it for, which is why I have it in my bag that I keep here, because if I go fish the river, it might be different. If I go fish some other body of water that's close and I'm just fishing from shore, all these things might work in a dingier water, in a different setting where the bottom material is different, a different type of weeds.
Yep.
There's all a place and a time for all these. Not saying that you have to have all these things,
but
you can catch fish on a lot of these. But imagine going to a body of water where there's a ton of weeds, and the only thing you have is one jig with one exposed hook because there's no hook, weed guard or anything, and you're just trying to cast out into this matted vegetation, and that's the only option you have. You're shit out of luck, bud. You ain't gonna catch nothing.
You're shit out of luck. Yeah, I was gonna say it's not gonna go well, and you just put it even more plain. But without dragging on the fishing topic anymore and retreading stuff, I love what you said there at the end, because like all these different scenarios could be jig scenarios, and that's why this is like the beginner's guide to jigs, because it was like, here's all this stuff. Now there's a whole world out there. Go explore.
Right. Yeah, because I'm not
really crazy to think about.
It does make it tough. I feel like I apologize if anybody felt like that was too long-winded or we didn't hit some stuff that you wanted. It's really hard to break down some of these uh, seemingly simple categories into what is actually ridiculously
Like,
large and far
right,
bigger than what I've touched on.
right. Which I think, which is
So,
the perfect way to like end this, is just go, that's why this is the beginner's guide, right? Like that's why you
right.
you didn't know how big this was, but now hopefully you do, and
Yes.
there could be more to it. So,
Yes. And no
all
stupid
right.
questions. If
Oh, also,
anybody felt
yes.
like that was too over your head and you want us to like go from the very beginning, come in and ask, just be like, but what was this? Sometimes I know so much about this stuff because I've been doing it for so long. I can kind
Mhm.
of gloss over the small, fine details
Right.
and not realize that I'm even doing it. So, again, if you
Right.
have any
Because
questions,
you
do
already have a
not.
vocabulary established.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. So, if there's like a
Yep.
term I use that you weren't sure of, or I said something that you were had questions about, hit us up. I'm happy to help. Uh,
Yes. Please. Please.
yeah.
So yeah. All right, man. That was great. I hope that helped out some people. Leave comments too if it did help you. Leave comments if you need more, want to talk more. We'll definitely look at them. But now let's jump into the random take where we are going to find out why me and Tim aren't friends. Hit the break.